One of the most common questions we've been getting asked recently, especially as it relates to our SEO services, is how does ChatGPT or AI generated content, how can that be utilized for SEO, and is it acceptable as far as Google's guidelines? Obviously, ChatGPT is an awesome tool. I'm sure many of you have used it. A lot of our SEO services involve creating new, fresh, unique content for clients' websites. And ChatGPT is obviously a great tool for doing just that. However, there are considerations with whether AI-generated content is consistent and approved by Google's guidelines. So I wanted to shoot a quick video today, talk about this topic. If you're looking for a definitive answer on this, unfortunately, that's not going to be in this video. My first point here actually is that all of this AI-generated content and this technology is so new. My belief is that nobody knows for sure how this content affects SEO, how Google views it. So the first point that I want to make is if you're talking to anyone who seems to know exactly how this is all going to play out or exactly how Google treats this content or how it should be used, I would be very cautious of taking that opinion as 100% fact. This is very new. This whole landscape is in the whole scheme of things very new. And I don't think anyone has a perfect understanding of how this is all going to play out. But I do have some thoughts on kind of initially Google's response and maybe some comparative topics in the past. So Google obviously has come out and responded to people's thoughts or concerns about AI-generated content. If you look up online, there's quite a few articles that Google has produced that address this topic and how it's going to be treated. One of the main things that I want to call out from what is included in these is most of the Google's wording around this topic is subjective, right? So they're not at a point, even Google's not at a point where they're going to come out and take a hard stance on this. You either can do it or cannot do it. Most of what Google is saying is there are situations where AI-generated content can be beneficial. There's situations where it's not. And really the main point they're focusing on is that quality is the focus. So obviously, whenever we're creating content for search engines, especially for Google, we want to be focused on the quality of that content. However, this quality piece also gives Google a little bit of leeway. If down the line they find that the users generating AI content does not meet their quality guidelines, that is something that they could penalize. So that's something that I wanted to call out. It's similar to some things that have happened in the past. I'm not saying that AI-generated content is not going to be beneficial for SEO, but what I will say is this subjectivity and what Google is saying in their response makes me a little bit nervous that there are going to be some constraints placed on this in the future, and Google is giving themselves the leeway to put those constraints in based on what they're saying now. What it kind of reminds me of, I've been doing SEO work for 12, 13 years, somewhere in that time frame. It makes me think about the Penguin updates and the whole link building concept of the mid 2000s, the 2010-ish era. Google, obviously, there was a lot of people trying to outsmart the Google algorithms, which is my next point here, with deceptive link building tactics. And it was kind of a similar slow burn where Google was addressing, there are certain kinds of links that are good, certain kinds of links that are bad. This is what you want to look at. And then when Google decided to take a final stance on this with the Penguin update, that's what many of you have heard about with websites dropping out of the index completely, getting penalized, things of that nature. So this is why we want to proceed cautiously and not act like we know everything right now, because frankly, nobody does. And what we don't want to do is go 100% in this direction too quickly and do a lot of work outside of Google's guidelines and have those similar penalties take place. So I think the best immediate course of action is you can use this as sort of a guideline or the base of your beginning of your content that you create. But I believe all content that's put on a website should at least have human edits and approval placed on that content, so it doesn't trigger any signals that it's just simply AI generated content that's copy and pasted onto a website for search engine. But the final point is, and this is with everything SEO related, do not try to outsmart Google. So if you're doing something where you think you found this trick or some way that you can get around how Google's able to see this content, or if anyone's doing work for you that's saying, we found this awesome loophole where we can do this and get you to rank more highly, those are automatic red flags. I would not pursue those tactics whatsoever because of these situations like what happened with the Penguin update, link building, and things like that. The best long-term strategy is cautious adoption of new technology. Obviously, this is going to be a part of the work we do in the future, but we want to make sure we're proceeding in a way that is staged properly and does not try to outsmart Google. That's rule number one. Those strategies will not work long-term. That's not something we do here at Northwing, but we are focused on ChatGPT, AI-generated content. We'll continue to create videos and content as the story kind of progresses and Google comes out with more information. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to help answer them and kind of walk through this journey with you guys. Thanks.